And now the news. And this week, Nokian shows off excitable tyres, Audi issues the Commissar order for the A8, and China, Britain's latest hybrid. Nokian, a name synonymous with winter tyres, have shown off a new tyre that changes the game entirely. Now, admittedly, being from the southern hemisphere, I knew very little about winter tyres, let alone their manufacturers. But after reading up on the company, including going into dark corners of the internet, i.e. comment sections, what stands out is that Nokian's reputation seems to precede itself. And while their advertising is definitely Finnish in humour, there's no doubt they are very Finnish in their innovation and work ethic. Actually, quick side note and a bit of history for you. I didn't know that Molotov cocktails were a Finnish invention. Talk about leaving your mark on the world. Turns out, during the Winter War of 1939, the Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov, I had to work for that one, produced propaganda that said their incendiary bombing missions over Finland were actually airborne humanitarian food deliveries for their starving neighbours. The Finns, being comedians in spite of their dry demeanour, took inspiration from this when devising what we now call the Molotov. They developed it for destroying Soviet tanks, branding it as a drink to go with Molotov's food parcels. Very clever. Back to the present though. Nokian has developed the Hakkapeliitta 01, a studded winter tyre that is able to extend and retract its spikes based on the temperature. Studded tyres are a godsend for winter driving, especially if your car is rear-wheel drive, but they aren't without their downsides. Firstly, they make a lot of noise due to their design. Secondly, having little metal studs constantly impact the road means over time you literally drive grooves into it. Nokian's goal with this tyre was to address the second issue, with these tyres admittedly only offering a 1 decibel reduction in road noise. It works because there's a layer that sits underneath the rubber onto which the studs are connected. This layer changes its consistency depending on its temperature, with the demo behind me showing how that works. So what happens is when temperatures are cold and there's snow or ice on the road, the compound hardens and the studs extend. But when it's warmer, the compound softens and retracts the studs. The result is tyres that don't wear as quickly and roads that need much less resurfacing. In other words, a warm fuzzy feeling throughout the coldest parts of the world. You know, honestly, this is the kind of innovation that I feel like us car people live for. To see something that is so clever that you just think to yourself, how the hell did they even think of this, and then make it a reality? To look at all the interesting solutions that manufacturers can come up with, and then still see an invention which stands up above all of that as a genuine breakthrough technology. We don't get many of these in a world where cars are designed for efficiency and cost savings. So it's just awesome to see the result of someone dreaming big in the car world again, instead of designing mid-sized SUV number 4332. Audi has quietly ended A8 orders in Germany. The last models were available for configuration on the 18th of February, with a spokesperson confirming its end, at least for the local market. When pressed about what this means globally, he noted that inventory and other factors would play a part. Say what you like, but that's just corpo speak for we're killing this model but haven't figured out the execution date yet. The A8 never really endeared itself to the world, being introduced as a competitor to the much more established and coveted BMW 7 Series and Merc S-Class. Most people just saw it as a bigger A4 with more luxury, and that was a stigma it never managed to shake off. With global sales of sedans consistently dropping in favor of SUVs, the low-hanging sedan fruit was always going to be plucked, and this car was exactly that. As I mentioned, there's no official end date, but the writing does appear to be on the wall, with this generation of the A8 debuting in 2017, and no indications from either Audi or spy photographers that a replacement is on the cards. It is sad to see another mainstay of the car world go, with the car having first been introduced in 1994, but it is very much a sign of the times. Lotus is introducing another car that's too quick for its target market. The Eletre isn't new, but the drivetrain, now a hybrid, is. The Eletre X PHEV will go on sale in the UK early next year for an as yet unconfirmed asking price, but expected to be in the range of £120,000. It'll feature a 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, but in line with current trends, that'll act mostly as a generator for the battery. Say what you want about Fisker, but their idea was way ahead of its time. The Eletre's combined power output will sit at 939 horsepower and do a claimed 0 to 100 km per hour in 3.3 seconds. On the Chinese CLTC economy cycle, the car claims a 260-mile range on battery power alone, but with the worldwide cycle, the WLTP, the figure is expected to be closer to 200 miles on a charge. This, according to Lotus, will result in a combined figure of 877 miles when considering both forms of propulsion of one tank/charge. I guess we'll see the true figure when the media get their hands on it. Lastly, the car will charge from 30 to 80% in 8 minutes if connected to a 150 kilowatt DC fast charger. But if that isn't to your liking, then at the cost of burning more fuel, you can have the car generate its own electricity at a rate of 25 kilowatt hours per hour when driving at 70 miles per hour. Having seen a few of these on the road already, I must say it's a very good looking vehicle. And even though it's priced out of almost everyone's budget, I do hope it's a success and can underpin the model range, allowing Lotus to do more on the sports car front as well. Hopefully with internal combustion engines too. Would you believe that Gordon Murray's T50 supercar is already 6 years old? It feels like just yesterday we first laid eyes on the former McLaren F1 designer's fan-powered rocket ship. Since that 2020 debut, all 100 road-going examples have sold out. But don't worry, if you missed out, there's an even more extreme version that is also already sold out. This is the T50S Niki Lauda. It's Gordon Murray Automotive's track-focused 772 horsepower take on the original. With a $3 million price tag and serious aerodynamic hardware, it's been in development since the first concept surfaced in 2021. This week, GMA released new footage of the car undergoing its final production approval test at the Bahrain International Circuit. Racing legend Dario Franchitti was the man behind the wheel, and was also the man signing off on it for production. During testing, he clocked a lap time of 1 minute 53.03, which, to put into perspective, is over 7 seconds faster than the GT3 race car benchmark. And that just adds to the insane numbers of this vehicle. We're looking at a 3.9-litre Cosworth V12 that screams to a 12,000 RPM redline. And because the car weighs in at around 900 kilos, the power-to-weight ratio is world-class. It features a 6-speed paddle-shift gearbox and a central driving position that makes most supercars look like SUVs. Plus, that massive rear fan and adjustable aero package can generate up to 12,000 kilos of downforce. Dario called it the most engaging car he's ever driven, claiming it surpasses his own World Championship winning race cars for pure fun. Production is now ramping up in the UK with the help of Multimatic. As mentioned, all 25 of these track monsters are accounted for, with 4 having been built already. Expect to see these delivered to their lucky owners by mid-2026. Ford is on a roll again this week with recalls. And while to their credit, some of the parts being recalled are not made in-house at Ford, nevertheless, it still goes down as another point for Ford on the recall leaderboard. The front windscreen wipers on certain Ford models may fail due to an assembly defect in the wiper motor produced by Valeo. The total number of vehicles potentially affected is just over 600,000. Affected models are from 2020 to 2022 and include the Ford Explorer, Ford Escape, Lincoln Aviator, and Lincoln Corsair. Next on the Ford list, if you own an F250 or F350, you may already be familiar with insufficient penetration, but in this case, it's to do with your truck. The rear drive shaft may separate at the friction weld due to insufficient weld penetration. What this means is your drive shaft could snap while driving, with endless potential lethal consequences available to you and the people nearby. Vehicles affected are the F250 SD and F350 SD, having model years 2025 or 2026. When driving your 2026 Lincoln Navigator below 5 km an hour, a software issue might cause the driver's seat to move by itself. This will be fixed by an over-the-air update down the line, and affected production dates are from November to December of 2025. If you thought Ford was done with record-breaking recall totals at 600,000, you're sorely mistaken. Nearly 900,000 vehicles are affected by a software glitch whereby the center screen might display an upside-down image. This usually happens after a restart, and there's currently no fix for it, but there will be one in the second quarter of this year. Vehicles affected are the Ford Escape produced from November 2018 to December 2022, Lincoln Corsair produced from January 2019 to December 2022, Lincoln Aviator produced from October 2018 to April 2024, and the Ford Explorer produced from October 2018 to April 2024. Lastly, with nearly 850,000 vehicles involved, another Ford issue has come to the fore. If the accessory protocol interface module gets too hot, it may shut down for 5 minutes. What that means in simple terms is you won't be able to view your rear view camera. This affects Ford Broncos produced from September 2020 to February 2026, and Ford Edges produced between August 2020 and May 2024. Finally, we move off Ford to the short part of this segment, literally every other manufacturer. Starting with General Motors, 2025 and 2026 Chevy Express Cutaway and GMC Savannah Cutaway vehicles may have tyres equipped that have pre-existing sidewall damage. GM will replace these tyres in due course. Secondly, for GM, nearly 12,000 GMC Sierra 3500 and Chevy Silverado 3500 models produced from August 2024 to February 2026 have fueling issues. Certain vehicles fitted with petrol engines and dual fuel tanks may have an issue whereby the fuel pump doesn't transfer adequate fuel between the tanks. The driver also doesn't get warned if that happens, which could lead to a stall. Skoda is next in line for some war crime airbags, with basically the whole model range affected. Airbags could inflate incorrectly, sending metal fragments shooting out when activated. This affects the Citigo, Fabia, Roomster, Octavia, Rapid, Superb, and Yeti, produced from May 2014 to August 2016. Mercedes EQA and EQB vehicles produced from February 2021 to July 2024 could have their battery short circuit and cause a fire, meaning we have the holy trinity of battery fire, airbag, and Ford in this week's recall list. Now, to end off, I appreciate this next recall doesn't fit the usual criteria of being EU or US based, but given the fact that I do like a VW Polo and I am from South Africa, I do feel like I should report on this one. Polo Vivo models in South Africa sold between February 2025 and February 2026 might have broken handbrakes. Nearly 26,000 units are affected. The height of a rivet used in the handbrake lever assembly might be incorrect, which causes the handbrake to occasionally not engage properly and in rare cases causes it to disengage. On this, a little bit of advice I learned from my dad, which is if you're parked on a hill, turn your steering wheel all the way toward the pavement. That way, if your handbrake does fail, the car will only roll into the pavement rather than rolling down a hill. And on that note, it's time to roll on out of here myself. That is the end of the news.